My brothers and sisters, we live in a world filled with distractions. We rush from one task to another, chasing goals, fixing problems, seeking comfort in people, in money, in success. Yet we often feel empty. And I ask you today, when was the last time you truly turned to the one who created you, not just with your lips, but with your heart? Prayer is not a ritual. It is not a burden. It is not a duty you check off your to-do list. It is the most powerful connection between you and your Creator. It is your lifeline when you feel like you're drowning. It is your compass when you're lost. It is your blanket when the world turns cold. And it is your sword when the battles of life become too much to bear. When you pray, you're not informing the Almighty of your problems. He already knows. You're declaring your trust in His wisdom. You're submitting your worries, your plans, and your hopes to the one who controls the skies, the earth, and every heartbeat. Prayer brings peace, real, lasting peace that no wealth or relationship can offer. It transforms the way you handle stress. It softens your heart. It gives you patience when you feel like giving up. It gives you hope when everyone else has stopped believing in you. Sometimes, all it takes is a sincere whisper in the dark, tears on the prayer mat, a broken heart, raised hands, and the words, "Oh my Allah, I can't do this without you." That is where healing begins. That is where strength is born. Don't wait for your life to fall apart before you pray. Don't treat prayer as the last option. It should be the first response. Because if He is powerful enough to create you, He is powerful enough to change your situation. So my dear brothers and sisters, hold on to prayer. Even when you're tired, even when you feel nothing is changing, even when the world tells you to give up. Because behind every sincere prayer is a door about to open, a hardship about to end, and a heart about to find peace. When you pray, you're not speaking into the air. You're not merely reciting words. You are engaging in a conversation with the one who knows everything you are going through. Every joy, every pain, every hidden fear, every hope that you hesitate to even say out loud. This is not just a connection. It is the most powerful relationship you can have in this life. Sometimes in life, you find yourself feeling misunderstood, even by those closest to you. You may feel that no one really sees your struggle, that no one fully understands the weight you carry. You smile during the day and cry quietly at night. And while the world moves on, your heart remains heavy. That is the moment when prayer becomes more than a religious act. It becomes your sanctuary, your secret place of strength. Because when you kneel in prayer, you are standing before the one who sees what no one else can see and knows what no one else can comprehend. You don't have to explain your pain in words that make sense. You don't have to justify your tears or organize your emotions. In prayer, your brokenness is seen as a form of sincerity. Your silence is heard as a cry. Even your sighs are recorded. Your tears are counted, and your pain is not dismissed. It is witnessed by the most merciful. People often think that prayer is only about asking for things, but it's more than that. It is your way of saying, "Oh my Lord, I trust you even when I don't understand what you're doing." It is the act of surrendering your control, your anxiety, your plans, and your desires, and saying, "I know, you know better." That trust, that moment of submission, is where transformation begins. Because now, you are not facing life alone. When you pray, your problems may not disappear immediately, but something changes inside you. There is a weight that lifts from your shoulders. You no longer carry the burden of outcomes. You stop trying to fix everything by yourself. You start to walk lighter, breathe easier, and rest in the knowledge that the one who created you is taking care of what you cannot control. You see, the real transformation doesn't always happen outside you. The real power of prayer is that it changes what's happening inside your heart. You may still have bills to pay, you may still face challenges, but suddenly you feel calmer. You start to believe again. You start to hope again. That is because when you speak to your Lord, He responds, not always with what you want, but always with what you need. There are moments in life when people disappoint you. You trust them. You lean on them. and then they walk away or fail to understand your struggle. It is easy to become bitter, to close your heart, to lose faith in goodness. But prayer reminds you that your worth is not based on how people treat you. Your value is defined by the one who never abandons you. When everyone else leaves, he remains. When others misunderstand, he understands perfectly. There's also comfort in knowing that you don't need to sound poetic or religiously perfect in your prayer. You just need to be real. Speak to your Lord the way your heart needs to speak, with tears, with trembling, with honesty. The beauty of prayer is not in the eloquence of your words, but in the sincerity of your heart. Even a single tear shed in a moment of deep connection is more valuable than 1,000 words uttered without presence. And when you begin to build a habit of prayer, not just in times of hardship, but even in ease, something beautiful starts to happen. You develop a relationship that becomes your constant source of strength. You wake up with a sense of purpose, and you sleep with a sense of peace. You no longer walk through life feeling like you're doing it alone, because you're not. You're walking with the one who knows what's ahead, who protects you from what you can't see, and who holds your future in his hands. You may not receive everything you ask for right away. Sometimes your prayers are answered in ways you didn't expect. Sometimes the delay is actually a mercy. Sometimes the closed door is a redirection. But when you keep praying, when you keep believing, you start to see that everything you thought was falling apart was actually falling into place. So keep that connection alive. Don't let the noise of the world drown out the stillness of your prayer. Don't let the business of life make you forget the one who gave you this life. Because when you stay connected to your Creator, you stay connected to peace, to purpose, and to power greater than any storm you may face. Prayer is not a weakness. It is your greatest strength. It is the key that opens doors, lifts burdens, and fills your heart with hope. So never underestimate the power of a prayerful heart, because it is in those quiet moments of connection that the greatest transformations take place. Sometimes in life, we find ourselves waiting for something to change. We wait for our problems to disappear, for our circumstances to improve, for our pain to go away. And in that waiting, we turn to prayer. We raise our hands, we ask with hope, sometimes with desperation. But what we often don't realize is that the most important change does not always happen outside of us. The most powerful transformation begins within our own hearts. When you pray, something shifts. Not always in your surroundings, but in your soul. The weight of the worry begins to feel lighter. The tightness in your chest starts to loosen. The fear that was gripping you starts to dissolve. Not because the problem has disappeared, but because your heart has aligned itself with the one who is in control of everything. That shift is not small. It is everything. That inner peace, that sense of calm in the middle of chaos, is the first sign that prayer is doing its work. Sometimes you pray for patience, and rather than your situation changing, your heart begins to endure more. You start to breathe through your trials instead of breaking under them. You begin to carry your burdens with grace instead of anger. That is transformation. It is not always loud or visible. It is quiet, but it is powerful. The kind of change that happens within is often what allows us to handle what hasn't changed around us. You see, we often ask the Almighty to remove a hardship, but instead He strengthens our hearts. We ask Him to fix a situation, but instead He fixes our mindset. We beg Him to open a door, but instead He opens our eyes. This is not Him ignoring our prayers. This is Him answering them in the most loving and wise way. Because what good is a new situation if our hearts are still burdened by fear, resentment, or doubt? So often, the prayer is not meant to change the world around us. It is meant to change the world within us. And when your heart begins to transform, everything else starts to feel different. Your responses change, your reactions soften. You begin to respond with kindness in moments you would have once reacted with anger. You begin to forgive when your heart once burned with revenge. You begin to trust when once you doubted everything. That is the hidden miracle of prayer. It teaches the soul to grow even in the places where nothing else is moving. Think of the most difficult moments in your life, the times when nothing made sense, the times when you felt completely alone. What brought you back? What held you up? What stopped you from falling into despair completely? For many, it was a moment of sincere prayer. Maybe it was in the quiet of the night, or in the depth of tears, or in a moment of complete surrender. That single act of turning to the Creator started a process of healing that the world couldn't see, but you felt it. You begin to see life differently when your heart has been softened by prayer. What once seemed unbearable becomes manageable. What once seemed hopeless now carries a flicker of light. That's because prayer doesn't just give you what you ask for. It prepares you for whatever is written for you. And often, that preparation is far more important than any immediate result. There are people who pray every day not because their life is perfect, but because they know that without prayer, they cannot face life. They know that prayer is what allows them to carry themselves with dignity through disappointment. It is what allows them to smile through sadness. It is what gives them the courage to get up and try again, even when they're tired. Prayer is not a guarantee that life will be easy, but it is a guarantee that you will never walk through life alone. And when that truth settles in your heart, the way you move through the world changes. You don't panic the way you used to. You don't feel abandoned the way you once did. Because deep down, you know that even in your weakest moments, you are being held by a strength that is far greater than yours. This internal transformation is often overlooked. People want to see results. They want signs. They want immediate outcomes. But the strongest sign that your prayer is working is that you are becoming stronger. You are becoming more patient. You are becoming more hopeful. You are becoming more content. That is not weakness. That is growth. That is strength. And it is the kind of strength that can only be built in the sacred space between you and your Creator. So when you feel that your life isn't changing, look within. Look at how far your heart has come. Look at how much more peaceful you are, even though your problems remain. That is the real power of prayer. It transforms you before it transforms anything else. And once your heart has changed, the way you experience the world will never be the same again. In a world that constantly demands quick solutions and instant results, it's easy to forget the value of consistency, especially in our spiritual practices. When it comes to prayer, many people begin with enthusiasm. They pray when they're in need. They pray when their hearts are broken or when life brings them to their knees. And in those moments, prayer feels powerful. But what happens when the situation remains the same? What happens when the answer doesn't come quickly? That's where most people stop. They feel unheard, forgotten, abandoned. But this is where the real beauty of prayer begins. When you keep showing up, even when you don't see a change yet. Consistency in prayer is not about repeating words. It's not about routine or ritual for the sake of it. It's about building a relationship with your Creator. Think about any meaningful relationship in your life. It's built over time, through regular interaction, through showing up, not just in moments of need, but also in times of gratitude, stillness, and even confusion. That's how trust is built. That's how love is deepened. Prayer works the same way. When you pray consistently, even on the days you don't feel inspired, you are training your heart to stay connected. You're building a foundation so strong that no storm can shake it. There may be days when your prayer is full of emotion, and others when your heart feels numb. Pray anyway, because every time you turn to your Lord, you are reinforcing the truth that you are never alone. You are reminding your soul that there is always hope, even in silence. Some of the most powerful prayers are not the ones filled with tears or eloquence. They are the quiet ones, whispered in faith when everything seems dry. They are the ones said with a tired heart, but a firm belief that someone is listening. That kind of prayer doesn't come from emotion alone. It comes from commitment, from the understanding that prayer is not a transaction, but a lifeline. It's also important to remember that consistency in prayer does not mean perfection. There will be days you miss, moments when you forget, times when you fall short. But what matters most is that you return, again and again. The door is always open. The mercy of your Lord is never cut off. It is not about never failing. It's about never giving up. Every time you return to prayer, even after slipping, you are winning a battle that the world cannot see. There's a quiet strength that comes from consistent prayer. It gives you stability in a world of chaos. It grounds you when everything else feels unstable. When you make prayer a regular part of your life, you begin to notice a shift in your mindset. You stop looking for validation in the wrong places. You become less reactive and more reflective. You start to see problems through a different lens, through the eyes of someone who trusts in a higher plan. And let's not forget that every moment you spend in prayer is recorded. Nothing goes unnoticed. Even if no one around you sees your struggle, your perseverance, your silent supplications, your Creator sees it all. The consistency that seems small in your eyes is beloved in the sight of the one who knows every beat of your heart. What feels like repetition to you is actually building spiritual strength. It is shaping your character. It is deepening your resilience. There will be days when you feel like nothing is changing, when the mountain in front of you looks just as tall as yesterday. But keep praying, because sometimes the answer is not in the outcome. It's in what your heart becomes through the process. The person who started the prayer journey is not the same as the one who continues it faithfully. Through prayer, you become more grounded, more humble, more aware of your purpose. The world will always try to pull your attention away. It will distract you with noise, with deadlines, with problems. But the one who is committed to prayer learns to pause in the middle of the storm and find peace. Not because the storm has stopped, but because their heart has found shelter in the one who controls it all. You may never fully know the impact of your consistent prayer. Maybe it's protecting you from harm. Maybe it's opening unseen doors. Maybe it's calming your heart in a way that saves you from a breakdown you didn't even know was coming. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it isn't working. Faith means trusting in what is not visible. And prayer is the purest act of that trust. So keep going, keep praying. Even if it feels dry, even if you don't have the right words, even if all you can do is whisper, "Help me." That is enough. That is strength. And with every prayer, you are not just waiting for change, you are becoming the change. Your heart is being polished, your soul is being nourished, and your connection to your Creator is growing deeper with every word, every tear, every moment of sincere devotion. There is a kind of peace this world simply cannot offer. It's not found in wealth, not in fame, not even in the comfort of relationships. There's a kind of peace that lives beyond circumstances, that settles the heart even when life is uncertain, even when everything seems to be falling apart. That peace comes only from prayer, from the moments when you sit down, turn away from the noise, and turn toward your Lord. The peace that enters your soul during prayer is not ordinary. It is sacred. It is a divine gift. It is what carries you through the fire without burning, through the storm without sinking. The world is full of anxiety. There is pressure from every direction. Work, family, finances, expectations, disappointments, and fears. People search endlessly for relief. Some seek it in distractions, some in entertainment, some in people. But even after all of that, there's still a lingering emptiness. A quiet unease that doesn't go away. That's because the heart was never designed to be at peace through temporary things. It was created to find peace in connection with its Creator. No matter how much you have, if your soul is disconnected, there will always be something missing. Prayer reconnects you to that source. It is like water to a thirsty heart. It nourishes your soul. It cleanses your mind. It brings clarity in confusion and ease in difficulty. When you put your forehead to the ground in prostration, something profound happens. You are reminding yourself that you were never meant to carry everything alone. You are surrendering not in defeat, but in trust. You're acknowledging that you have a Lord who sees, who hears, who knows, and who cares. The world teaches you to be strong, to be independent, to figure things out on your own. But the beauty of prayer is that it invites you to be vulnerable, to admit your weakness, to cry without shame, to say, I can't do this without you. And in that moment of vulnerability, you don't become weaker, you become stronger. Because now your strength is not your own. Now you're drawing strength from the one who has no limits. It's easy to think of peace as something that will come when everything in life is going right. But what if true peace comes despite what's going wrong? That is what prayer teaches you. That you don't need perfect circumstances to feel whole. You don't need everyone's approval to feel worthy. You don't need to have everything figured out to be calm. You just need to remember your Lord. He is enough. He is always enough. Many people try to numb their pain by ignoring it. They distract themselves. They pretend they're fine. But when you turn to prayer, you're not ignoring your pain. You're placing it where it belongs. You're not denying what hurts. You're asking for healing from the one who created your heart in the first place. And the moment you begin to feel heard in prayer, truly heard, that's when the heart begins to settle. There is something so comforting about knowing that you're not alone. Even if the world doesn't know your struggles, even if no one checks on you, even if you sit in a room full of people and still feel unseen, prayer reminds you that you are never forgotten. Your Allah is closer to you than your own breath. He knows the tears you cry at night and the battles you fight in silence. And every time you stand in prayer, you are standing before the one who sees every detail of your life with perfect understanding. And what's amazing is that peace through prayer is not limited to a few special people. It is available to every single one of us. You don't need to be perfect to pray. You don't need to have it all together. You don't need to wait until you feel spiritual. Just show up. Even if your heart is heavy, even if you haven't prayed in a while, even if you feel distant, prayer is not only for the ones who are already strong, it is also the path back to strength for those who have lost their way. That peace you feel in sujood, that calm that enters your heart when you raise your hands and speak to your Lord, that is a gift no one else can give you. It is a reminder that while the world may be unpredictable, your connection with the Almighty is constant. That while people may walk away, your Lord never does. That while situations may change, His mercy remains. So when the world becomes loud, when your thoughts race, when your heart feels tight, take a step back and pray. Pour your soul into the one who understands even the words you can't find. Let your prayer be the place you recharge, realign, and rebuild. Because peace is not found in escaping life. It's found in facing it with the tranquility that only comes from divine connection. And when you make prayer your safe space, you'll begin to carry that peace with you everywhere. Into your relationships, into your decisions, into your trials. You'll face life with a heart that is calm, even when the winds blow hard. Because deep down, you'll know you've already surrendered it all to the one who holds everything in his hands. How often do we find ourselves overwhelmed by problems, running from one person to another, looking for solutions that seem out of reach? How many times have we exhausted every effort, searched every corner, knocked on every door, only to end up with more confusion, more frustration, and more pain? And in those moments, when nothing seems to work, we finally turn to prayer. But what if we didn't wait until we were broken? What if we made prayer the beginning of every journey instead of the last stop? Prayer is not a backup plan. It is not a final resort when everything else fails. It is the foundation. It is where strength begins. It is the most powerful step you can take before doing anything else. Because when you start with prayer, you are inviting the one who knows everything, past, present, and future, into your decision, into your struggle, into your process. Before every major choice, before every risk, before every confrontation, before every new path, start with prayer. Because when you pray first, you shift the burden. You acknowledge, this is too big for me alone. And in that admission, there is no weakness. There is wisdom. There is clarity. There is the humility of recognizing your limitations and the strength of trusting the one who has none. When you begin anything with prayer, you are anchoring yourself in purpose. You're saying, I don't want to walk this path if you're not guiding me. And that mindset transforms the way you move. You're not just relying on your own knowledge, your own ability, or your own intuition. You're being led by divine wisdom. And even if the outcome doesn't look like what you expected, you will be at peace. Because you started it with the right intention, in the right way, with prayer. Sometimes people delay prayer because they want to try everything else first. They spend days, weeks, even months trying to force solutions. They lose sleep, they lose peace, and they lose direction because they're moving without the map. But when you pray, you're asking the one who wrote your story to guide you through it. You're asking for ease in difficulty, for light in darkness, and for strength when you're tired. Why wait until everything breaks to turn to Him? There's something beautiful in the way prayer opens doors. Not always in the way we expect, but in the way we need. A person might pray for one specific thing, and maybe they don't receive it immediately or ever. But through that consistent act of turning to their Lord, they receive something far greater: peace of heart, clarity of mind, or the courage to keep moving. Sometimes the prayer doesn't solve the problem, but it prepares the heart to rise above it. How many times have you looked back on a hardship and realized that the strength you had to endure it didn't come from your own effort? It came from the moments you sat down, raised your hands, and quietly said, "Help me." Those moments may have seemed small, simple, but they were everything. They were your turning point. They were the beginning of change, not just in your circumstances, but in your soul. The person who starts with prayer is already ahead. Even before anything moves, they are steady, because their heart is not tied to outcomes. It is tied to the one who controls the outcomes. That's why they don't panic when things go wrong. They don't break when plans fall apart. They trust. And that trust was built in the quiet moments of prayer. You don't have to wait until you're desperate to pray. You don't have to wait until everything is collapsing. Begin with prayer even when things are going well, even when your life feels calm. That's when prayer becomes more than a response. It becomes a relationship. You're not just turning to your Lord because you need something. You're turning to Him because you love Him, because you rely on Him, because you know that everything good in your life is from Him, and every hardship can only be solved through Him. Prayer is the start of every solution, not just the spiritual ones, even the practical ones. Before you speak to someone, pray. Before you sign that paper, pray. Before you start that job, that project, that journey, pray. Let prayer be your first instinct, not your last option. Because when the foundation is solid, everything you build on top of it will be stronger. It is true that life will not always go as planned. You will still face struggles. You will still be tested. But a person who begins everything with prayer is never truly lost. They may stumble, but they won't fall apart. Because their strength doesn't come from circumstances. It comes from connection. They know where to return. They know where to seek. They know who to trust. So if there's something weighing on your heart, if there's a decision you need to make, if there's a road you're about to walk, pause. Turn to the prayer mat, raise your hands, speak honestly, ask sincerely, and then move forward knowing that you didn't walk in alone. Let every chapter of your life begin with prayer. Because every solution, every blessing, every miracle begins the same way. With a heart that turns toward its Creator and whispers, "Guide me." My brothers and sisters, life will test you. There will be days when you feel like the walls are closing in, when your strength fades and your heart feels heavy with burdens the world can't see. And it is in those moments that prayer becomes your rescue. Not because your situation immediately changes, but because you change in the process. Your heart softens, Your patience strengthens. Your trust deepens. That is the miracle of prayer. It realigns your soul with its Creator. Prayer is not only about asking, it is about connecting. It's not simply a ritual, it's a spiritual lifeline. The one who prays regularly doesn't walk alone. Even when there's no one around, they're never lonely, because their Lord is always near. Every tear that falls during prayer is witnessed. Every whisper is heard. Every fear, every hope, every longing. You are never alone in carrying them. We often spend our lives searching for keys to success, happiness, inner peace, and direction. But many miss the most important key of all prayer. Because the one who makes time for their Creator finds that the Creator makes time for them. Life might still be difficult. You may still face loss, pain, setbacks. But the one who holds on to prayer holds on to something unshakable. They carry a calmness that this world cannot give and cannot take away. Let us never underestimate the power of a sincere dua made in the middle of the night. Let us not forget that the doors we knock on every day may remain shut, but the door to Allah is never closed, not for a moment. He waits for us. He loves to hear from us. He knows what we ask, and even better, He knows what we need. So don't give up. Keep praying, keep connecting, keep returning. Even if you feel far, even if you've made mistakes, come back through prayer. That's how transformation begins. And if this message touched your heart, if it reminded you of the beauty of your connection with your Creator, then don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who may need to hear it. Let's spread hope together. And if you'd like to hear more reminders like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share this video with others. May peace, healing, and guidance fill your heart and your life through the power of prayer. Ameen.